Welcome back. Yesterday we talked about Sabbath. Today I want to talk about all the things that seek to destroy the idea of Sabbath in our lives. And probably the biggest enemy of Sabbath is busyness. We are simply too busy trying to do too many things. There's no white space left. Richard Swenson, in his book called Margin, defines white space or margin as the space between tasks and limits. Think of all the tasks you have to do. This represents all the things required of you. Work, home, church, family, social life, getting the oil changed, doing laundry, everything. Let's pretend they're this high. The more tasks we add, the higher the pile. Now, we all have limits. Limits include energy, health, life stage, whether we have kids, married, single, babies, whatever. It includes money, time, except we all have the same amount of time, and so on. We all have different limits because we have different life situations, different energy levels. Now, if your tasks are lower than your limits, you have white space. If your tasks are higher than your limits, you're on the road to burnout and breakdown. You could try and increase your limits, but there's not a whole lot we can do about that. The only solution is to reduce your tasks. Say no. Eliminate things from your life. So why do we need to reduce busyness? The problem is that we're so busy with activities and tasks and parties and work schedules that we have no time left to, number one, be still and know that He is God. And number two, love people in a leisurely and non-hurried way. We are a people living under the new covenant, and we operate according to the great commandment. Love God and love people. Probably what suffers most when we are too busy is relationships. Relationships with Jesus and relationships with other people. Friendships, family time. Time spent encouraging other believers or sharing Christ with an unsaved friend. White space is where we play Legos with our kids, where we take a friend to coffee so we can share their pain, where we can take our wife on a date. When my wife would go grocery shopping, she would schedule 2 hours for it. 1 hour to do the shopping and 1 hour to talk to the people she would run into. She built white space into her life for people. Being so busy that there is no time for people is conforming to the pattern of this world, which I would call sin. Being so busy that we can't stop, that we can't be still, that we can't listen for His still small voice, I would also call that sin. But why are we so busy? Swenson in his book explains an interesting, even scary phenomenon that is happening to those of us alive today in the 21st century. Our culture has shifted into fast forward, and the growth in progress, the changes in our society are no longer gradual and steady. They are exponential. They're going off the chart. Let me give you some examples of exponential overload. A single edition of the New York Times contains more information than a 17th century Brit would encounter in his entire lifetime. One doctor said that if he read 2 health articles every day, in a year he would be 800 years behind in his reading. It has been estimated that the average person today must learn to operate 20,000 pieces of equipment. 20,000! It's very likely that if I stayed at your house, there's a good chance I would not know how to turn on your TV and figure out how to watch a show. Why do we do it? And better, what can we do about it? I think we do it because we don't realize the nature of that exponential overload. We get our eyes off of Jesus alone and we think we need the latest iPhone upgrade, or we try to master all 20,000 devices. We forget that living for Jesus is the only thing that ultimately matters, and it's not necessary to put our kids in 4 sports, 6 after-school clubs, and send them to 3 different summer camps. That's what everybody else does. That's what the world expects of us. And so we follow along blindly. Jesus gets smaller and smaller. The expectations of the world loom larger and larger. And all the while, we're slowly burning out, slowly dying as those tasks overcome the limits. What can we do about it? How do I respond to this cultural reality? Well, I would suggest that, first of all, we understand that being too busy to pursue relationships, too busy to let ourselves rest, too busy to give ourselves some white space to be still, that is sin. We are too busy for all the wrong reasons. Secondly, learn the art of setting limits. Learn that it is okay to not have the latest whatever. We don't have to upgrade. We don't have to get the latest. We don't have to get the newest. My phone works fine. Why should I add another new thing to learn to the other 20,000 I need to know how to use? Thirdly, learn to say no and be content. Lack of contentment is sin. We work harder, we skip rest, we fill white space with overtime because we're not content with what we have, what we can earn in a normal amount of work time. So we work like crazy to get things, get more money, rather than give ourselves room to build relationships. Paul said it well in 1 Timothy 6. But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we cannot take anything out of the world. But if we have food and clothing, with these we will be content. Well, my time is up. Take a look at your life. Are you buying into the exponential growth machine and burning out because you have no white space? Ask yourself and ask God, what do I need to do to eliminate, to say no to, in order to gain more white space? Where am I sinning? Tomorrow evening, we're going to meet at the church for an evening of prayer. Our focus is going to be on repenting for being too busy, repenting for not having white space, and asking the Holy Spirit to help us expose more white space in our lives so that we can fulfill the Great Commandment. Then on Thursday and Friday, we're going to take a look at some practical ways to accomplish this. I hope to see you tomorrow evening.